everyone. Karen the Warp Spinster here. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. It is, I don't know what the lighting's going to be like today. It's a very gloomy day. Big storms through last night. We missed the worst of it, but every warning system on the planet was screaming at us early this morning. So we're doing okay, but it's gloomy. So pardon me if the lighting is not terrific. I want to do some more work on this piece that I pulled out last week. And if you saw that video, you may remember that I was wanting to add some depth because just the black and white with this pop was pretty flat. So I started adding in some shading here. But I was flipping through Facebook and came across this. I love Art Deco, so Facebook gives me lots of Art Deco posts. And I am interested in this section because it gives that perspective of going back into the background. So I'm looking at just this section here and sort of doing this. I'm not even sure if I want to do the top part here, but I know I want this bit. So my plan is for I don't want to copy it exactly, but that concept of the perspective going back. I think I want this strip to be the turquoise color and maybe a different, like a darker or a lighter. Let me think. It would be lighter in the front. And then have these strips, I'll have black in between here. And then each of these strips going back would be varieties of gray, different shades of gray. And I think I'm just not going to worry about this part. I don't know if I even want that divided. I may or may not. But for now, I want to just work on this concept of this being forward in the perspective and then that moving back. So that's going to involve having some angles here and at the bottom as well. We'll just have to extrapolate there, which isn't that difficult to do. So we'll have that pop of turquoise here, grays moving from light to dark, and they would in perspective get a little wider as they go back. We'll see how that goes. And I probably will, because I do want that depth to it. So that's the plan for today. I'm not going to do any of this cross stuff on the windows. I'm not trying to recreate this building, although it is a lovely building, isn't it? It's the Niagara Mohawk building in Syracuse, New York. It's just gorgeous. I love Art Deco. It's inspiration for me a lot. This is just pretty marvelous, isn't it? Love that sort of wing up sweep. It's pretty marvelous building. Anyway, all right, so let's move forward with that. So let's talk for a minute about how I'm thinking I want to put this together. I do not want this very front panel there to come to a point in the middle. I want that to be flat across the top and the bottom. So I'm going to do this in 3 pieces, 1, 2, and then 3. This one will be a strip of turquoise with white on the top and the bottom. And then these I'm going to do as strips. I will cut the angle for those. And this is improv, so it may or may not be the same angle. We'll see how that goes. And then on each of these, I will cut an angle of white and add that on, so that when the angle is already going to be determined, I'm not going to have to try to set white into this. It'll be separate strips, sew them together, and then I can just cut across and the angle will already be embedded in it. So that's the plan. I do not have a lighter turquoise than what I used already, so it's going to be darker. It's no biggie. So first process, I think, will be just doing this strip, which is going to kind of determine how large this is going to be. Do I know where this is going to go in the quilt in the end? No. Do I even know if it's going to be in the quilt in the end? No. It may end up being its own thing, or it may be, yeah, tried it, didn't especially like it, at least in this quilt, so that's that. But I think it's worth doing because I just love this building. I made a decision, which I want to share with you, and that is that I don't want to cut an angle. I'm going to have it sort of step down instead of everything coming to almost a point there. I think I want to step down, and it means I have to decide how I'm going to do these black strips, where they are going to fit in on the steps. And I think it's just going to be this way. I haven't cut these yet, but so the one toward the center will go with the next strip, etc., etc. I think I'm going to like that better. And I may or may not care if these are actually exactly lining up from side to side. It would either have to be pretty far off so that it doesn't look like I'm just incompetent at piecing, but I'm not sure it would give that perspective quite as much if I did that. So I'm uncertain at this point. Now I think I'll maybe try to put it up. It's my quilt. I can do what I want, right? So I'm just going to start doing these strip sets. They're all going to be basically this length, but they just get shifted down. And again, if it's not exact, I won't cry, but if it's not exact, I want it to be very not exact. So I'll just do some of these strip sets, and I will then be putting white strips at the top and bottom of each one. And that saves me having to do the angles and deciding all that stuff, which is not really a big deal, but I think I'm going to like this step better, just with the nature of the quilt that I'm making and what I have in my brain. This is where I'm at as I'm getting ready to sew. This is very simple because these are all 11 inches long, and I'm just stepping down the widths of them. This one is, I think, 1 3/4, 1.5, 1 1/4. And these are 7/8 inches wide. This is without seams, so that will change. Now it's beginning to look to me like organ pipes, which my mom was an organist, loved playing organ, and I just think this would be lovely to include Mom in there. All right, so I am going to sew these, then I'll come back. I think this is about the drop that I want. Let me measure that drop. Might be, okay, so that's about 1 inch-ish. Well, those are more than 1 inch, and it doesn't really matter. It can change. So it's between 1 inch and 2 inches. So I'm going to sew these together. Then I'll put some white strips at the bottom and the top. I don't know what length those are going to be. It doesn't matter because I could just chop them off, slice them off when I get there. I'm almost thinking I want this one to be down a little more. Don't I? Well, we can talk about that later, but here we are. I'm ready to sew the strips. And I did, oh, the reason I came on actually is to say that I've decided not to put black strips on the very outside. It would still be open for me to do that if I wanted to later on, but I don't want to hem it in too much. I don't want to necessarily make that big a stop for the eye. I just don't, well, right now I don't think so. I'm going to save these strips because maybe I will want to in the end, but that may serve to just isolate this too much. So we'll see where this ends up going in the quilt, if it does, and then I can make the decision. I'll be saving these strips. I am saving all the pieces because, all the leftover pieces, because they may have a place later on. All right, now I'm going to sew. Strip sets are finished. Now before I sew these all together though, I need to decide if I want this to be even steps, so symmetrical basically, on each side of the turquoise. So I could make it so that they are just right to make sure that I'm not going above that. Or do I want to make these uneven? I thought this was what I was going to prefer, but I think it loses some of that depth if I do that. And since I'm trying to add in some depth, I think I'm going to have them at least roughly equal so that you get that effect. This will all be narrower because I still have a lot of seams to do, of course, but okay. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to eyeball how far they are down. It will be fine. So I think the best way to go about that, oops, this is going to have to come up because I need to be able to still have that entire piece in there. So anyway, I will adjust all of that, sew those together, and then we'll come back and see how it looks. One last decision to make. I had made this the widest piece, and I may still like that, but since the turquoise is meant to be, you know, a pop of color, would it be better if I had it smaller so that it's maybe a starting point for the dimension but not the focal point? This way, at its true width, which would actually not be quite that wide because I haven't done the seams yet, is that too much? Do I want it to be quite narrow? I kind of like it both ways, so I'm torn. All right. Here's the thing, I'm not going to do these last two seams because I want to hear from you about which you like better. Bearing in mind that the other pieces have very narrow strips of this. So do I want to start to bring in more turquoise? Or do I want to keep it as just the occasional small bit of color? Let me know what you think, and we'll take it from there. Otherwise, we are finished with this bit. Time will tell whether it will actually go into the quilt in the end. And depending on how you look at it, this comes forward or that goes back. So greater saturation can bring it forward, and as it gets sort of hazy, it can go back, but it's also darker. It can be darker in the background. So it depends on how you want to see perspective, I guess. That's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and do let me know whether you like it, the turquoise, wide or narrow. And I'll let you know the conclusion next week. And I think next week I want to try to do a little something with these leftover pieces, except these black strips, because I may still want those. But I have some leftover bits of the black strips, and I've got some gray scraps and whatnot, so we'll see if we can do something with those. This was not going to be a very large quilt, but it may turn out to be an Alice thing. I don't know. I just don't know. So I hope that I will see you next week. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out.